I call the focused question. And this is the question: what do you think the long-term impact would be if your church did 4 community seed projects in each of the 4 areas, but you did a physical project in that community, you did a social project with an emphasis on social needs, here you did spiritual, here you did wisdom? What would be the consequence? And if you only did those 4, the consequence would be that that community over here would only see God's love in the physical area, only see God's love in the social area, the spiritual, the wisdom area. And we need the people who don't know the Lord to be able to see His love in every area. Okay, the final one is it needs to be ongoing. And that means many seed projects done over time. Another way to say that is that doing these projects, these demonstrations of God's love, is part of the DNA of the church. So when the community looks at your local church or thinks about it, it doesn't think about it as only holding services on Sunday and Bible studies during the week. Oh, that's the church that has that feeding program. Oh, that's the church that cleans up our streets. Oh, that's the church that... It needs to help the people in the community see that God is concerned about all areas. And the way we do that is we continue to do seed projects. This is not to be done as a response to this seminar or this class. It's something that we get the idea from the class, but it becomes a lifestyle of our church. So this diagram helps us to see that. We have one church, we have the 4 areas, we have one community, and that community sees God's good intentions for them on an ongoing basis, not just once. Okay. I want to show you an example of one church in Tegucigalpa, Honduras. And I talked to the pastor after his church had begun to do seed projects, and they'd been doing it about 1 year. I called him and I said, Alex, I know you haven't probably got a list of them in front of you, but tell me about the seed projects that you can recall that your church has done over the last year. And this is what he told me. I want you to let this sink in. These seed projects had happened in 1 year in this one church, in one community. Number 1, look at the chart. They fasted 1 meal a week, and they used the resources of that fasting to feed hungry people. I wish I could tell you the stories, the detail of these stories, because some of them are incredible. They hosted a soccer league in their community that didn't have a place to meet. They did a medical clinic in the church for people of the community. They did a child care class for mothers of the community. They painted speed bumps, which they call in Honduras sleeping policemen. But they painted these speed bumps in the streets because they were so high that when people who weren't familiar with the area, they would drive over them, really damage their cars because at night they couldn't see them. So they painted these. They ministered to the social needs of 20 alcoholics that they knew about in their church. They filled potholes in the streets. And there were, believe me, there were a lot of potholes in the streets. Now, that's not all. Look at the next slide. This is a continuation of what this one church had done in 1 year. They collected clothes for needy children. They placed garbage barrels in the community to collect trash. They constructed concrete stairs on a steep path. They got slippery when it rained. They distributed bed sheets to prisoners in their prisons. And if you don't, the prisons in Honduras don't provide bed sheets or even mattresses. at least at that time. They collected and distributed school supplies for the children whose dads were in jail. That's what Alex, the pastor, remembered. He didn't even have it written down in front of him, but I wrote as he talked to me, and he said, Bob, these are what I can remember of the projects that we did in 1 year. That's one church of maybe 200, maximum 300 people. Wow. What do you think the people of that community thought about the people of God in that local church? Everybody knew about that church because they were different. These were people who really cared. What would happen if your church did the same thing? I want to, as we close this session, for you to look at another seed project. Actually, this is a church that did a series of seed projects. They encouraged their people, number one, to individually demonstrate God's love in their businesses or among neighbors. Number two, they had play and game days for the children from a slum community nearby. And they did this every week. They went to visit old people in old folks' homes in the city of Curitiba, Brazil. And this video will just give you an example of the multiplicity of the kinds of seed projects that a given local church can do. This is a middle-class community in Curitiba. Watch.
The church in Curitiba, Brazil, has made a lifestyle of seed projects, truly the God-given ministry of local churches everywhere. In January 2001, Jose, a shoemaker in Curitiba, Brazil, attended a Harvest Basics course taught by Clayton Oliveira, the director of Harvest in Brazil.
José, the shoemaker of the church, got the idea and applied to his community. This is an example for the whole church. As a result, we created a model of work for seed projects. This has been our natural way of working. We have been able to use this as an example to other churches. Despite it being something small, it has been meaningful to teach how discipleship can change a person, a community, and a nation.
Since Jose needed help in improving business and in organizing used shoes for sale, Clayton, who has a business background, visited Jose as both his spiritual and business mentor.
I am a shoemaker. This is what I do for a living. I took the basics course at the church, and I discovered that I wanted to help someone else. So I took Michael as an apprentice and I showed him the skills of a shoemaker. You see, this way he could help his mother and also continue to live with his brothers. That is what I understood I should do.
When Clayton arrived at the shoe shop, he met Micah, then a 14-year-old apprentice. Although business was scarce, Jose was using his spare time to teach the shoemaking trade to this young man who otherwise would be exposed to drugs and violence on the streets. Now, more than 2 years later, Micah has faithfully developed his skills as a promising shoemaker. Jose's demonstration of concern for another person's well-being contributed successfully to Micah's spiritual and emotional growth. At home, Micah's single mother, Roseli, was especially glad to see him cared about in this way. And she needed the bread and milk money her son earned at the shoe shop for the family income.
Quando assisti os estudos do básico, me ajudou bastante. Porque daí
When I attended those studies, I learned how to take care of my family. And that was important because that gave me encouragement, and I learned how to take care of my kids, and they learned how to understand me better. I learned that the people at the church cared for us.
Now Roseli, Micah, and her other 3 children attend the evening service and study about loving God in the basics course taught in their home church. While Micah acquired a profession, Jose taught him from the Bible. Instead of a life on the streets, he now has the opportunity for a healthy future and an eternal security. The Shoemaker and His Apprentice is just one of many seed projects originating from this tiny 100-member church in Curitiba, Brazil, through their holistic evangelism approach toward their community. Another example is Lorival, whose once successful career was suddenly interrupted with a tragic stroke, leaving him partially immobilized. But Clayton and other church members encouraged Lorival and helped him walk in a nearby park, refreshing him physically, mentally, and emotionally. Today, Lorival dreams of going back to work and is grateful for his wealth of new friends. On typical Saturdays, the church participates in 4 simultaneous seed projects, bringing children from poor neighborhoods to the church to practice basic life skills. At the same time, ladies from the church show others in the community how to do needlework. And a brief outreach to elderly persons living at a nearby nursing home. While many of these activities began as simple one-day outreaches, they have become a lifestyle of reaching people throughout the neighborhood they have claimed for Jesus Christ. Most of all, however, the entire church recognizes that ordinary tasks, when done to the Lord in a spirit of gladness and love, bless both themselves and those they help. Clearly, a vision for seed projects always grows into daily loves for one's neighbors.
Now that you have seen a video, you've seen about the definition, the purpose, the characteristics, and the long-term, what's required for long-term benefits, I want to give you an assignment. And the assignment is this. I want you, if you're working as an individual or if you're working in a cohort with people that are right there or available to you on the internet, I want you to take a period of time without looking at this video again, without looking at your notes, and to see how many of these things that we've talked about in this session you can recall. I want you to talk about the 5 principles from seeds. I want you to recall the 2 purposes. I want you to recall the 4-part definition of a seed project. I want you to see how many of the benefits that you can remember, how many of the 10 characteristics you can remember, and how many of the long-term effectiveness principles you can remember. There are 27 of them. See how many of these that you can come up with either by yourself or as a group. And let us hear. God bless.